No, it's not going to happen. And I don't know if anyone wants that to happen, if there's anybody in Philadelphia assumes they would like to have Shady McCoy back. I understand it from a football standpoint, but it's not going to happen. The Bills, as you mentioned, the league year starts pretty quickly. It creeps on you pretty, early March 9th. So there's not going to be a lot of time for this to be shake out fully. And the Bills are not going to move on and take that kind of cap hit. It's just not prudent for them to do.
Jphn McMullen's with us, 97.3 ESPN.com. A lot of interesting things to discuss on the NFL docket. I want to cross off some of the local things real fast. Najee Good, very minor move, but you said over at 97.3 ESPN.com, good thing for the Eagles. They get a depth guy and a good special teamer.
Yeah, it really is. Remember, he was the last cut down to 53 by Chip Kelly this past year, and then he was brought back later in September. And he still managed to finish third on the team in special teams tackles. Had that big punt after Chris Maragos blocked the punt against the Patriots. He recovered it, scored the touchdown. So that's what he is. And the best thing about him, anytime you have a backup player, especially at a position like linebacker, offensive line would also be another position. You want somebody with versatility, and he's a guy they look at that can back up all three positions in a Jim Schwartz 4-3. So I think that's where his value lies as a versatile backup, and the fact that he is a very good special teams player.
More bad news, by the way, for a couple of Browns today, indicted on felony drug possession charges. The NFL just can't seem to get away from some of these things, John. What are some of the things, last week when Roger Goodell spoke, what are some of the major offseason issues that you think that the NFL will be looking at to possibly change?
Well, they've done a lot as far – I don't know how much more they can do, and I've been very critical of the NFL over the years, more how they handle things than anything else. As far as guys getting in trouble, one of the underrated aspects of the current CBA and the fact that there was so much time cut down, not only on practices, coaches always complain that they don't have the ability to have two-a-days and there's only a limited number of padded practices during the season. You've seen some of the tackling issues, so coaches don't like it. But the underrated aspect of that is the players don't have to be at the facility very much. In fact, they can't be at the facility. And when, there's that old, I don't want to go biblical on you, but there's that old saying that idle hands are the devil's workshop. And basically when you have nothing to do and you don't have to go to work and you're a young man with a lot of money, all of a sudden you start to get some of these issues. And I think that's one aspect that the NFLPA, from their standpoint, they might have to look into giving a little back just to get some of these young people some structure. Because if you're at work, you're probably not going to get in trouble. But if you're not, it kind of opens up all kind of windows for you.
Yeah, there's no question. At 21 years old, if you gave me that much money, I don't know that I would be making great choices all the time. Just a hunch, right? All right.
I didn't have all that much money, and I didn't make great choices.
All right. ESPN.com had off-season predictions for 32 teams. I want to throw a couple interesting ones your way and get your gut reaction on whether you see these things happening. I want to go to the NFC East teams. And one, the Dallas Cowboys, the prediction there is that they will not re-sign Greg Hardy. So do you think Greg Hardy – I'm interested in this one. Do you think Greg Hardy is back in Dallas? And if not, John, is he back in the NFL?
I do not think he will be back in Dallas. I do think he will be in the NFL because he's got too much talent. What the Cowboys learned is for all the off-the-field issues, their biggest issue was the fact that he was partying too much, and he was showing up late for work and doing sort of those Johnny Manziel-like things. I know a lot of the publicity was him not understanding and not handling the media well as far as his issues in Charlotte. But for the Cowboys, from the Cowboys standpoint, they just didn't think he was a professional. And at the number 4 overall pick, they have some options there. A lot of people think they're going to go quarterback and try to get the heir apparent to Tony Romo. I don't think so, because Jerry Jones is on record. He thinks he's got a Super Bowl team if Tony's healthy, and he wants to add to it. So if you have a Joey Bosa type who might be the best player in this draft sitting there at number 4, well, they're going to draft him and say goodbye, Greg Hardy.
All right, New York. They believe, this is Dan Graziano picking this one, says that they will be major players in free agency. He believes Eric Berry is a guy that they will target on the market. And another interesting thing for them is the JPP decision they have to make. So a big overhaul from the Giants via free agency?
I think so. You saw it today, actually. They freed up about $11 million in cap space already. They moved on from Will Beatty and Jeff Schwartz on the offensive line. The oft-injured John Beeson retired. So already they've started sort of clearing space. And we know one of the reasons Tom Coughlin's no longer there is because Jerry Reese hasn't given them very good rosters over the past number of seasons. And they need an influx of talent. And when you talk about the safeties they had playing this season, it could have been the worst group in the entire NFL as far as their particular safety. So it makes a lot of sense for Eric Berry. What doesn't make sense is he's healthy. He's back from the lymphoma. He had a Pro Bowl year. I can't see Kansas City not bringing somebody who means that much to their organization back.
All right, Washington, that they will work out a multi-year deal with Kirk Cousins. That doesn't seem to be far-fetched, but is he worth $18 to $20 million?
That's the going rate. We're having the same conversation here with Sam Bradford. If you're a starting quarterback in this league and you had some success, and he's the starting quarterback of the NFC East champions, he's going to get $18 to $20 million per year. And I think he's more valuable to the Redskins than other teams because he knows the system. Jay Gruden likes him. So, yeah, I think they're going to get it done. And when you look at it from the long haul, as far as that going rate, I think it's going to be a pretty team-friendly deal from the Redskins' perspective.
John, what happens with Robert Griffin III? What do you think his offseason looks like?
It's going to be interesting. My first thought would be Dallas, now that Johnny Manziel's sort of out of that picture. And obviously he's a Texas guy too. And even though we just talked about Jerry Jones, and I don't think he's going to draft the heir apparent to Tony Romo, he does want to bring somebody in that could potentially be that heir. And Robert Griffin III, from that standpoint, makes a lot of sense. And, you know, if you think about what he was as a rookie player in this league, the 7 straight wins, that was the last time the Redskins won the NFC East before they won it this year. And then all the injuries kind of took place from there. If he can get healthy, he is a very, very talented guy. So somebody's going to take a chance. And my first thought would be the Cowboys.
All right, a couple other interesting ones before we get to the Philadelphia one. Matt Forte leaving Chicago. Will he be an attractive free agent on the market if the Bears do not re-sign him? Running back, you know, he's been there a little while, so he's got the tread. He's 31.
Yeah, you're on the wrong side of that demarcation line, and everybody talks about 30 and running backs, and he's got a lot of touches, not only running the football but catching it. So a lot of it depends on price. We talk about it all the time. NFL teams don't put a premium on running backs unless you're Chip Kelly, evidently. So as far as big numbers, I don't think he's going to see anything like that. But he's shown when he's out there, and he's had some injuries over the past number of seasons, seems to be getting nicked up more and more, which brings us back to that age we were talking about. But as far as being an all-around back, as a guy who can run the football, catch the football, also pick up the blitz as a pass blocker, he's one of the most well-rounded backs in football. So somebody's going to get a very good player.
All right. How about Drew Brees? What will the future hold for him in New Orleans? The prediction by Mike Triplett is that he will sign a 3-year extension to stay in New Orleans. Do you think Drew Brees ends his career a Saint?
I do. And a lot of people have them taking the heir apparent in the draft. If one of those quarterbacks falls, I think they're number 12. That could be a possibility. But obviously, you're talking about a guy who's probably not, quite where he was at his apex when he was winning the Super Bowl and setting so many records. But he's still really good at the quarterback position. And we've seen guys play late in their 30s at a really, really high level, even Brett Favre at 40. So I think he's got a couple good years left in him. The Saints want him. He wants the Saints. I don't see any reason that doesn't get done.
All right. This one's interesting. San Francisco. He believes that Colin Kaepernick will go to new coach Chip Kelly and own his failures over the past 2 years. Do you see a Kaepernick, Chip Kelly, union here? Is this going to be, we all thought that was what Chip Kelly was attracted to that job for. Then it sounded like he didn't want Kaepernick. So does Kaepernick go to Kelly and say, I want you to coach me?
Well, the whole thing about Chip Kelly is he is a wild card. Nobody really knows what he thinks because he doesn't let a lot of people into his inner circle. But as I said, from covering the team during his tenure here, to me, it's not about what he says, it's about what he does. And for somebody to fit into what he wants to run offensively, you need mobility. I don't care what anybody says. And he finally has a quarterback with that type of mobility. So when push comes to shove, we might talk about the culture aspect and some issues Colin Kaepernick had with Aldon Smith. So that might go to the other direction as far as Chip Kelly wants. But if he wants to succeed in this league, and remember, he's already taken a number of bullets. He doesn't have the reputation he once had, and he's obviously not going to them. He better make friends with the mobile quarterback, and I think eventually that's going to be what happens.
What is Brock Osweiler's future? Is it in Denver? Do you think some rogue team will throw some money at him?
No, I think it's in Denver. I think it's pretty clear that they're going to move on from Peyton Manning, and he's going to retire at some point and leave the stage with the Super Bowl victory and the fairy tale ending, and I think that makes sense. And John Elway already has in his mind that Brock Osweiler is going to be the next starting quarterback, and it makes more sense, similar to Kirk Cousins, but at a lesser level. He already knows the system. He's more entrenched in Denver than he would be somewhere else, and he certainly wouldn't have to learn a new system. So it all makes sense. I just think it might be difficult to cobble out the numbers because the Broncos are shaping up to have some significant salary cap issues.
All right, having some fun with some off-season predictions. These are from ESPN.com's NFL Nation reporters. Cleveland will again spend much of their offseason finding a quarterback. I mean, does that mean that they don't draft a quarterback?
I think they're going to draft a quarterback. The number 2 overall, they'll have their choice of all three. So as they go through their due diligence and whether Jared Goff would probably be the safest pick, Paxton Lynch might have the highest ceiling, and Mike Mayock today came out and said that Carson Wentz is the best of the three. So those are the names you're talking about. They're set 2 overall. We all know Johnny Manziel's out as soon as they can cut him on March 9th. They're not going to there's that famous picture, I'm sure you've seen it, Mike, about that one fan who has the jersey and keeps adding the names on the back of it for how many quarterbacks the Cleveland Browns have gone through. It's time to stop that. It's time to get the future. They have the 2nd overall pick. That's where you can get a franchise quarterback. You just got to pick it right.
Sure do. We'll see. Draft talk's going to be heating up here soon on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Last one with the Eagles here, as Phil Sheridan, who joined us earlier in the show, predicts the Eagles will find a way to bring back Sam Bradford in 2016.
Well, I will say this: I like Phil, but that's looking less and less likely by the day. And I know a lot of people don't buy the Nick Foles rumors, and I don't necessarily buy them, except for the fact that Doug Peterson does like him a lot as a player. I've said since day one it's got more to do with the money, and I don't think they see Sam Bradford as the long-term answer. So why waste 3 years at $20 million per year if you can get a bridge quarterback and draft the eventual long-term answer? And I think that's the way things are trending for the Eagles.
Yeah, and that should be, that and Fletcher Cox. Fletcher kind of on Twitter the other day said, I don't know what everybody's talking about here, kind of indicating that the two sides really haven't been talking all that much, but we'll see if that ends up happening. We know that benefits the Eagles to try to get a deal done with him, more so that it benefits Fletcher Cox. But, of course, that will be one of the big stories moving forward, both Sam Bradford and Fletcher Cox. They are the two big keys coming up. John, first day for clubs to designate franchise is February the 16th. We got the Combine on the 23rd. By March 1st, that's the deadline to designate your franchise players. March 7th is when teams can enter contract negotiations, kind of the legal tampering period there. The league year begins on the 9th. And then we have the owners' meetings coming up on the 20th of March. So a lot of football dates between now and the end of March. And then, of course, all of that plows through to April 28th, which is the NFL draft. And NFL free agency will end on the 22nd. So it feels like it's going to be moving pretty quickly here.
Yeah, there really is no off season anymore. You get through the Super Bowl and you basically have 2 weeks to the Combine and everything's off and running. So really the only dead period is the time after minicamp between training camps. So this is one of those areas, and you've seen it with Howie Roseman, the constant deals. We seem to get one every 2 days or so. And, as you mentioned, he wants to get something done with Fletcher Cox. The question with him, does he bet on himself? And then the ultimate answer with Sam Bradford, it's coming. But I think if you look at the tea leaves, you look at Doug Peterson talking to Derek Gunn and talking about young quarterbacks, you look about what it's going to cost this team, I think we're going to get a new quarterback in 2016.
All right. Jphn McMullen, everybody, more on the NFL. Check out his piece on Najee Good right now over at 97.3 ESPN.com, at Jphn McMullen on Twitter. Thanks, John.
Hey, thank you, Mike.